The changes happening in the gaming industry are astronomical and more than we've ever could imagined right now in this space. Previously, you would see companies, especially in the 2020s, being sold off to one another. Xbox buying Activision Blizzard King and buying Bethesda. PlayStation buying Bungie and practically everybody else on the board as well. And Nintendo pretty much not buying anybody. They want to keep things to themselves. But you see, it's not just the big two like Xbox and PlayStation who are out buying companies, publishers, and corporations. We saw Embracer basically buy everybody across the board as well, and then lay everybody off that they also purchased because the deal that they had didn't actually go through. And finally, there comes the actual sale we're going to talk about today, and that's with Electronic Arts being sold to the Saudi PIF fund. Now, the thing is, I've talked about this before, and sure, it could be a good thing, but it could also be a double-edged sword for many people. On one hand, people were celebrating, no more dealing with shareholders, no more dealing with that kind of issue, or even having massive amounts of people trying to go through and over-monetize you every single time. Or to go around and making possibly the worst decision for franchises and IPs, even though those IPs and franchises could be consistent mainstay staples that sell millions of copies, but apparently it wasn't enough for shareholders overall. And that's where this sale, in fact, comes in. You see, what's happening right now is it just got finalized and it was, in fact, approved. But there are some issues that are already happening behind the scenes that could make this possibly not only a great example of why going private may not be the best course of action, but also to show that no matter where you go, you're either in the frying pan or in the fire. Because according to Culture Crave on Twitter posting, EA is officially a privately owned company. Main investors include the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia and Jared Kushner's Affinity Partners. The deal was worth $55 billion. And I'm not going to lie, $55 billion is a hell of a lot of money to make this kind of deal. The problem, though, is this. EA itself went almost $20 billion in debt to make this deal even happen. If you thought EA trying to monetize you with surprise mechanics was bad before, I got a feeling it's going to get even worse right now. But the problem isn't EA going into debt on their own. The problem is that EA still at its core is EA. With IGN posting this, EA CEO got an $8 million raise thanks to how well Battlefield 6 performed, 4 months after the devs responsible for making the game got laid off. With the article stating, however, in March 2026, just 5 months after celebrating the most successful launch in the Battlefield franchise ever, EA laid off an undetermined number of employees across all its Battlefield teams to, quote, better align itself around what matters most to our community. Now, come July, one of EA's SEC filings have been released, showing that Andrew Wilson's total compensation for the 2026 fiscal year added up to $38,649,984. As pointed out by PC Gamer, this is an $8 million increase from his total compensation from the previous year, and he has Battlefield 6's success to thank for it. All right, yeah, that's what we're dealing with right now. Let's fire a total number of people, have a successful game, have that game be completely ruined over time because we're going to get into that later too, don't worry, and then make a cool extra $8 million in that fiscal year. By the way, that's $38 million for that year in that compensation for Andrew Wilson. Do you think he deserves all of that money? Do you think he's required to have all of that money? And also, when we're talking about this, how much do you think he's getting paid off for EA getting bought by the Saudi PIF fund as well? It's almost like the entire idea of microtransactions isn't even for the shareholders, it's more for the suits and the CEOs to get their massive paycheck after firing everybody off in this goddamn industry. So yeah, things are not going to get better. And personally, what we're seeing right now are the CEOs and the C-suites of basically every company taking every golden parachute they can and going ahead and trying to get out of the burning building as quickly as possible. And we're seeing this happen across the entire industry, with every other company doing the exact same thing, raising prices, having massive layoffs, and putting you over a barrel as a customer. But the problem is EA had to take on a massive amount of debt for this deal with Saudi PIF's fund to even go through, like I said earlier on in the video. And that's where things are going to get even worse, not only for EA, but also for their employees, the game developers, and what EA is going to be doing in the future to you as a customer. And it's not looking pretty. Because according to PC Gamer, Saudi acquired EA is reportedly planning to make massive cuts after taking $18 billion worth of debt. According to the article by PC Gamer, the news comes courtesy of Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, who posted to Blue Sky, quote, EA officially goes private tonight, meaning EA will no longer trade on the NASDAQ for the first time in 36 years. All stockholders of EA, including many employees, will receive $210 a share, and EA will take on $18 billion in debt, putting it on the hook to pay $1.8 billion a year in interest. EA's annual EBITDA is around $1.5 billion, which should be enough to service the interest payments. But the publisher has told debt investors that it will cut $700 million in annual costs, including $170 million in organizational efficiencies per Bloomberg. In other words, mass layoffs. And even Colin Moriarty on Twitter posted, because the Saudis leveraged this buyout via a massive loan from JP Morgan, EA's debt is now 10 times higher than it was when it was a publicly traded company, $2.2 billion to $22 billion. Needless to say, you're about to see in-game monetization schemes you couldn't even possibly imagine. And that's how things are going to start getting really bad really fast. A lot of people were celebrating EA going private, which, yeah, could make sense in some capacity. No more shareholder pressure, no more dealing with all the other garbage happening in the space, no more having to worry about agendas being driven in your video games, and everything else will be coming up roses, except it may not be. We don't even know what's going to happen in the future. But going around and getting a 10x increase in your debt is not going to be a good deal overall. And having to pay $1.8 billion every single year, with interest, mind you, is going to be a big way of going around and saying, where can we cut costs across every aspect and even charge our customers even more with surprise mechanics as well. Get ready for loot boxes, microtransactions, and everything you could possibly imagine to make sure that you are paying more money every single time. I could also see EA jumping on the exact same bandwagon as Take-Two and Rockstar, not putting any of their games on disc, trying to save as much money and cut costs in every way possible. And speaking about cost cutting, well, here go even more layoffs. You see, the problem is that EA always does this consistently. They'll have great IPs, they'll have great games on their actual block, but they'll do nothing with them. Or those games, in fact, begin to fall apart. And fall apart they actually have. We've been watching as Battlefield 6 in the last 6 to 5 months has totally just cratered its own player base, seeing as how content is being cut consistently. And it turns out things are going to get even worse for EA if they don't fix this problem, because apparently Valve is also stepping in to make sure you are treated correctly as a customer. Because according to Eurogamer, Steam reportedly refunds Battlefield 6 player with 470 hours logged after EA quietly pulled the rush mode from quick play. Reddit user Explore Everything 1 states that Valve refunded the full $109.24, roughly 81 British pounds sterling, that they paid for the game's Phantom Edition, despite roughly 470 hours logged, more than 230 times Steam's usual cutoff. Rush disappeared without warning earlier this week as part of patch 1.4.1.5, buried among a batch of otherwise minor fixes. It's still ostensibly available via the portal, but not via custom search, which is why players noticed its absence, along with other quietly removed modes as well, almost immediately. saying, quote, "It's the mode I have the most time in by far," they wrote, and later added, "I've been a Steam customer for 22 years and have 2,500 games on my account. I have only ever requested a refund once in that entire time until today." In this context, the Reddit user said, that swayed Steam's support. They say they explained that several modes had disappeared from matchmaking without notice nearly a year after launch, then pointed the agent to Battlefield's own official mode list and EA's community update confirming the removal. The agent apparently agreed that wasn't right and processed a full refund on the launch day purchase. First of all, I gotta say, W Valve, every single time. It's actually crazy how this company will always do the right thing for their customers. At the opposite end, though, this is incredibly terrifying. Think about this. You're someone who's paid over $100 for a video game. At the actual core of that game is a massive multiplayer live service campaign where you're going around and having everything from Portal to modes and everything else. But yet, for some reason, the game you paid for is no longer there. The control that you had as a customer is actually gone. And the difference instead is they're quietly removing modes and content from the game that you paid for, giving you less content overall, but still keeping all the money that you spent all up front. And I feel like this is going to be the scariest part of what's going to be happening with EA as well. I feel like what they're going to be doing is trying to over monetize their player base, reduce headcount at EA as well, and then once headcount is reduced, begin to remove modes and even content from video games that you've already paid up the money for, either months or even a year afterwards, keeping games on what's called life support. That way minimal amount of work is being done by developers and you still get to keep the game as well in some sort of like skeleton outfit. Really not going to be the best thing overall, especially for people who want to have video games as a collector's item or even play video games in the first place. And it's not just going to be content that's being cut as well. You're going to be seeing massive over amounts of monetization. The portal as well, in my opinion, could actually be used to monetize players even more, trying to create almost like a Roblox atmosphere with that kind of content being put in and you paying for it. Hell, Axios even admitted that EA CEO at the time stated that minutes played in a game converts directly in a one-to-one fashion to money spent in the game. And that's what they're going to try and do. Keep you hooked onto a video game as much as possible, and not by giving you the proper updates, not by giving you the right space overall to enjoy the content, but instead by piecemealing you content overall, or removing what doesn't have the actual amount of revenue being put into the game as well, and keeping players at bay while trying to monetize them to hell and high water. And it's going to get even crazier though, because not only are they going to do that to their own games, apparently they're going to do that to their own studios as well. Because according to Hazardor Gaming on Twitter saying, EA could be looking to sell BioWare and other IPs following Saudi Arabia takeover. With the article stating that as reported by Mike Straw on Blue Sky, EA could look to offload BioWare in its bid to cut $700 million in annual spending. While answering a fan question, the insider revealed that mass layoffs will happen at the company in the next 12 months, and entire studios like BioWare could be closed or sold off. Moreover, EA will also look to auction off some of its IPs, but Mike Straw isn't sure which franchises are on the chopping block. Regardless, the sale of BioWare alongside its tentpole games, like the Mass Effect and Dragon Age, is now highly likely. And this is the part that's going to make things even worse for the gaming industry. Now, granted, let's be honest about this. EA and BioWare especially, they haven't been putting out the bangers we expect them to put out ever since Dragon Age Origins and even the Mass Effect series. But the problem is this. What you're looking at is that EA is sitting on, in fact, some of the most storied and direct IPs in the entire gaming industry. Mass Effect, Dragon Age, everything else across the board that BioWare has done. And even so, many other IPs as well that they do nothing with overall. Look at how many companies and developers and studios EA has effectively destroyed. Actually, every single time, massive amounts of IPs get nothing being done with or get bastardized into mobile slop like Command & Conquer. But that's what we're seeing right now. Even though the privatization means no more actual shareholder influence and no more influence from the outside space, what we're seeing right now, though, is the fact that money talks and everything else can take a walk. And EA and other companies who want to go private may have to put themselves into debt, sell off IPs, close off studios, and shut things down for actual content that we could have had as users if those actual studios were treated with proper respect. And if those developers and studios and publishers treated their users with a modicum of respect instead of trying to over monetize them every single day they possibly can. It's almost like they're just doing everything on their own, but still making the same exact mistake, the definition of actual insanity in this space. EA is going to be a perfect example of what's going to be happening in the gaming space overall, especially with companies wanting to move away from shareholder influence. And instead, they'll have to be influenced by the one thing that has no care or willingness either, and that's massive amounts of debt to pay back for selling their studios. Instead, these companies are going to be looking for as many whales as possible to supplement their massive amount of debt, over monetizing every single gamer and trying to squeeze out every dollar while charging you more, giving you less, and making you, in fact, owe nothing. And that's going to be the scariest part of all. EA, being one of the first major companies in the gaming space to go fully private after being public for so long, could be a good idea for many other companies. But the reality is, if these companies are going to have to go into billions of dollars worth of debt, what they're going to be doing is trading the frying pan for the fire. And when they get to that moment, that's where things are going to get even worse for you as a customer. Yeah, this industry is going through a lot of things right now, and honestly, I don't know where it's going to go or how things are going to pan out. I don't know if other developers or studios or publishers will also want to go private as well, or if things are going to even stay the same with shareholder issues and influence. In the end, though, all that really matters in this space is the dollar, and these companies will do everything they can to throw you under the bus, take your money, and then point at you and say you didn't give them enough. And clearly, we're seeing it happen in plain sight right now. But as always, if you guys want to see more of this kind of content, subscribe to the channel. Oh, and don't forget, I live stream every single weekday from 10:30 a.m. to around 2 p.m. Come on down and hang out right here on this channel as I stream video games, and you get to hang out with the community who gets to make fun of me and call me DSP for being bad at games. It's a hell of a show. You don't want to miss it. Every weekday, 10:30 a.m. to around 2. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you guys next time.